Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Smallfoot. In a lot of ways, is sort of no different from like any animated film you've seen in the past, like whatever years. It doesn't feel ultimately that original, and anything different really about the concept isn't really utilized as well as honestly it really could be. Now the whole idea is basically that instead of Bigfoot people or Yetis, they don't really say, yeah, I guess they say Bigfoot. Anyway, instead of us being afraid of them, which I don't know if we're really afraid of them, just like not sure if they exist or not, which is not really the same as being afraid, but whatever. We find out they're just as scared of us until one day everyone's mind is totally blown when they find out they both exist. And then a Bigfoot brings a Smallfoot to the Bigfoot village and it totally changes their society and stuff. And yeah, you know, I get Warner Animation Group is trying to do films that are basically not Lego movies or based on previous properties by kind of finding topics that are not big IPs but are still sort of recognizable in some way, so they can sort of treat them like big IPs, like, you know, storks or Bigfoot. They're certainly something everybody knows. Does someone own the rights to them? No, not at all. So they can definitely make movies out of these recognizable concepts or ideas and kind of treat them as IP. I don't know if there's a term for it, but that's basically what they're doing. I didn't really like the storks. I don't really like this movie either. It's sort of doing the same thing as Lego Movie, where it's like, let's take on a big concept that's saying something about society and commercialism and all these big ideas. And whereas the Lego Movie really takes all that on in a very John Carpenter-esque kind of way and questions a lot of those things and questions your kind of identity and role in society and how people use media to kind of lull the masses and everything like that. You know, everything is awesome and all that stuff. Smallfoot is political message is pretty much like, man, rules, why do we have them? Think about it. And you're like, whoa, I never thought about it, why we had rules. And that's like the whole, that's it. There's not, it's stupid. And that's kind of the biggest problem with Smallfoot. I get this is a movie for kids, but Lego Movie was a movie for kids, and it did a really great job at doing all those things, and was funny and wild and crazy and eccentric. And I think Smallfoot feels noticeably contained and test market ready, and sure, it is kind of trying to do this like bigger kind of political kind of statement, but without actually getting political or really making a statement about anything, but kind of in the broader apolitical sense of making a political statement. Then Smallfoot's, hey, really great at it, I guess. I mean, the whole way this film is made and flows is almost very much to be palpable and ready for the masses and easy to go down, while trying to do this bigger message sort of doesn't fit and makes it seem a little lame and stupid, and like it isn't really able to kind of tackle having any sort of edge really, because it just comes off as like, I don't know if you guys are really doing what you think you're doing with this movie. I think you're just kind of going like, okay, believe in yourself but question rules, but don't really, because this movie doesn't question anything in terms of what you're watching in front of it. Smallfoot kind of doesn't get why previous animated films that do raise bigger questions, that are big budget animated films, obviously there's smaller ones that do that as well, but I think when you have a big budget animated film that does bring things into question, it's kind of a miracle and a revelation. And Smallfoot just feels like it's paling in comparison to everything like that. It even has songs like in the traditional like animated big musical thing. I know this director, Carrie Kirkpatrick, does have a Broadway background, so that's not exactly, you know, inappropriate for him, but it does feels like the typical thing you're supposed to do in an animated film. I will give it some credit for having Common do the kind of rap explainy thing that Hamilton did so well, but you also have Common, and Common's like, you know, one of the greatest rappers of all time. So if you're going to have anyone sort of do the Lin-Manuel Miranda thing, you might as well have somebody who could probably rap better than Lin-Manuel Miranda, which is pretty awesome. So the Common song, I will sort of give them credit for like utilizing Common and all his powers. I thought that was the one song I actually sort of liked. Smallfoot just kind of shows you the problem with Warner Animation Group. You know, it's like, They also came out with Teen Titans Go this year. They had Lego Batman last year. It feels like what they do is they get too much of a good thing to a certain regard. And it felt like that last year, I believe it was last year, where you got Lego Batman and then Ninjago. And Ninjago felt like, okay, we've done this Lego movie. This is like your third Lego feature film here, and it just felt like they're running something kind of like almost into the ground, like reusing same jokes, but they didn't feel inspired. It felt like the filmmakers and the writers weren't inspired by them. It wasn't just that I had seen them before. And Smallfoot sort of feels that same way, where it's like, well, if we take the plot of like Lego movie and we do it like this animated thing, and it'll probably do pretty well because of this, that, and this. It just feels very cynical and boring, because you're just like, keep going to this well and going to this well and going to this well until I'm fucking sick of it. And Smallfoot, I think, kind of makes me sort of fucking sick of it. I like that, you know, hey, you're an animation studio who's doing different character designs and taking on different sort of things. That's awesome and amazing. This doesn't look like Storks. It sort of looks like the same animation studio, but not really. And Pixar and DreamWorks, frankly, aren't doing that. But at the same time, I was so bored by it, like, I sort of didn't give a shit. And this movie is kind of blandness on blandness. It's actually based on a book called Yeti Tracks by Sergio Pablos, who is also the creator of Despicable Me. He has, like, no involvement in this other than it being based on his work, which is sort of interesting that Warner Animation will be working on this. This also had some animation by Sony Imageworks, so it's like Sony, Illumination, Warner Brothers, and it doesn't feel like you had 3 studios working on it. Or does it, really? You know, this just felt like everything was so by committee, like Danny DeVito's role, who I love Danny DeVito and stuff, from It's Always Sunny to any movie role. It just felt like he came with the box or something, some of these cast members, you know. Zendaya, who normally I liked a lot in Spider-Man Homecoming, felt so uninspired in this. Same with Channing Tatum. Like, why have these voice actors? Like, the one thing I think when I look at the Lego movie, again, from the same studio, or when I look at Teen Titans Go, which also came out from the studio this year, is that they have voice actors who are expressive. Like, even Nick Cage as Superman, he has an expressiveness to his voice. Like, Channing Tatum doesn't really, and there are a lot of people, like, I think Justin Roiland's in this. I, like, sort of thought I heard him a few times, but they didn't really bring out the expressiveness in this, so it just felt like random animated movie, pretending like it was really, like, making a big statement. I noticed, like, everything with the cops and things like that was maybe trying to do something more, but it just felt so sort of pathetic. Like, it's like, but you're not really saying anything with it. You're not really saying anything about the protests that have been going on and everything like that. You're kind of just saying, like, hey, we should just, like, accept people, and if people think about that, world's gonna change, man. And you're just like, this is the Bigfoot movie, guys. And you don't even do a joke with the famous Bigfoot photo. I mean, that's just a failure on all fronts. I think we can all agree that that was like the one joke you had to do, and you didn't do it unless it was like hidden, or I fell asleep during that part or something. Alright, so could we have some more basis of people actually being afraid of these Bigfoot Yeti people before we show the kind of more of the twist? While we're watching this, it just feels like they just like have us take the twist for granted a lot of ways. You know, having James Corden's character, who I don't know why James Corden gets so much voiceover work, but whatever, does this like rap to Queens Under Pressure, to like, because he's a nature program guy who's gonna fake a Yeti thing, but then does see actual Bigfoot Yeti people and becomes friends with them and all that stuff. I was so sort of uninterested in this movie while it was going on. I wasn't really that into it. I was just like, I like to see all the major animated films, and I was like, hey, this is one of those, so I will see it. It felt like the most blah and uninteresting of the animated films I've seen this year, just because, like, Incredibles 2 I was disappointed by. I had obviously a reaction to that was very, you know, passionate, maybe passionately disappointed, but it was passionate. Smallfoot just sort of feels like you know, someone's like, what did you see? And I'm like, Smallfoot, and then I'm like, I don't even really want to explain it. Like, I don't give a shit. It's like, when you don't care enough to explain the movie because people haven't heard of it, that's not a good movie, you know. And it's not because I'm embarrassed because I'm, you know, older and I'm like seeing an animated film. It's not that. It's just like, okay, so there's Bigfoot, and it's like the Bigfoot people, I guess, And I actually worked with a guy who's really into Bigfoot stuff, and he always told me they like lived underground and stuff. So I don't know how he's going to feel about this movie. I'd love to hear a Bigfoot expert's take down on a Smallfoot. That would just be very funny to me. I just don't think like any of these characters are likable enough. Most of these people are cast because they're famous. They weren't very like well cast famous people. You know, you can have voice actors, but again, they need to be expressive enough to like really sell these characters. And when you have someone who has a voice that's like bland normal person, it's just like Channing Tatum's voice isn't that distinctive enough, especially the way he's performing it. Same with Zendaya. I mean, Common and Danny DeVito are like, you know, born ready to do this sort of thing. But I would say like Warner Animation, they're sort of in the right place in terms of understanding to take on different things, doing original properties, doing different character designs, but it's like do something with that. You know, you have your cash cow with the Lego movies, like artistically do something different or do something more fun, because this isn't wacky and weird enough to be like the Storks, but it's also like kind of like not fun enough either. You kind of get this thing that's like, oh, we're trying to be serious and say something about society or something, and it just made me end up being like, yeah, that's boring. Like, do something fun. Like, this is Smallfoot. Like, I don't want to hear you guys like make me totally rethink the Bill of Rights while I'm like watching this dumb kids movie. I just like, come on, like let's just like meet me halfway sort of. And I think this film just got too wrapped up in its own bullshit and never really unwrapped itself to kind of let us in and be entertained by it. Because even like the fun jokes like, hey, this one Bigfoot guy isn't gonna jump off the cliff like the rest of them are, haha, he'll wait till it's all over. It's just like none of that really felt entertaining enough to like warrant this movie, to kind of like change my mind about it. You know, I didn't have my arms folded the whole time, like prove it to me. But as an audience, you know, people do actually have to sit through these things, and you should, you know, maybe at least try to do something with your weird idea of a kid's film, really, that's based on this Despicable Me guys thing. I couldn't find the book really anywhere, Yeti Tracks. I'm curious what that could have been like, but Smallfoot, much like Storks, it just makes me go like, you know what, this maybe isn't for me, but it also kind of makes me think, I don't think this is really for anyone, because I can't imagine anyone being passionate enough about this individual movie. Maybe like when they're going to see it as a kid or something. It's the kind of movie that kids fall asleep during. It's not the kind of movie they're passionate about and have Yeti stuffed animals and things like that. It's just, this film does not demand that kind of a fandom, really. It just blandly gets you through itself and like maybe gives you a song or something, and that's the best really this is gonna be. It's just so serviceable, it might as well not exist. So if you have seen Smallfoot and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.